It's Marketing Monday, Art Marketing Monday, and I'm Eric Rhodes, and I hope that you are here to learn a little bit about marketing your art. If you're an artist or somebody selling your paintings, drawings, photography, pot holders, this show is about how to sell more of your art, your craft, the beautiful things that come out of your heart. We're going to be offering a few people a chance to come on live today, and you guys, let's see if you can stump me. So first off, I'll tell you the questions and then I'll tell you how to come on live. We got a lot of questions that people have submitted. We might not get to them all. We'll try. One is, when you have a talented artist friend whose best work is pen and ink, how do you direct them first to sell their art pieces and second to make the best promotion of artwork? Okay, we'll talk about that. Steve is asking, in a saturated market, what unique value propositions can certain artists bring to highlight themselves? What role does storytelling play? How do you leverage collaborations, etc.? Kevin is asking, how do you deal with copyrights, infringements? Karen is asking, should I open my own place to teach and sell my art? Lots and lots and lots of questions. I don't know if we'll get to them all, but welcome to Art Marketing Live. Let's officially get this show started.
It's Art School Live with Eric Rhodes.
All right. Well, I'm Eric Rhodes, publisher of Fine Art Connoisseur and Plein Air magazine. I have been working with artists in marketing for a long, long time. And I learned from the school of hard knocks, marketing and selling my own businesses. And before that, marketing other people's businesses. And actually have probably spent, I don't know. I don't want to make some up number. I was going to say hundreds of millions of dollars in marketing. That's probably not right, but tens of millions of dollars in marketing, and have watched people soar, including watching artists soar by some of the things. I'm also an author. I've got a book out. We'll talk about that at some point. Anyway, my superpower, if I have one, and I don't claim to have anything, but if I had one, it would be marketing. And so I'm here to help you and see if I can help you with that. If you want to come on live, here's how to do it. You just go to Art Marketing. What do? We go to, I'm sorry, Art School Live, artschool.live/stream. And then you follow the instructions and you have to do all that stuff. Artschool.live. Okay. Okay. You don't have to bring it back. That's fine. We got it. Now, here's one from Leslie Hamilton. She says, when you have a really talented artist friend whose best work is pen and ink, how do you direct them to sell them as art pieces? And secondly, make the best promotion of their work? Well, I think that you can lead a horse to water, Leslie. But if somebody's doing pen and ink or they're doing anything for their own pleasure, about the best you can do is say, hey, these are really good, and I think you could probably sell some of these. Now, if it were me back in the day, somebody said that to me, I would have one of two reactions. Yeah, okay, how do I do it? Or no, I don't want to do it because I don't have the ability to do it. I don't have the ability to sell. I don't want to sell. So I think that the convincing has to take place first and foremost in their head. And all you can do is kind of open them up to the possibilities. You can tell them about how you sell your work and how you started out. In terms of what's the best way to make a promotion of that work, I can't tell you that because it depends on the artist, it depends on the work, and it ultimately is going to boil down to how committed the artist becomes and whether or not they're going to want to be promoting themselves. So cross that bridge first. Let's get them first across the transom so that they say, hey, I really want to sell my work. And then you can show them some things that you've done in the past and what might work for them. But the first step is let's get them committed. Okay. The second question that she sends is, does identifying a target market by researching through census information make sense for an artist interested in selling more of their work? I don't think so. Now, keep in mind that, as a marketer, I've had to look at census information. I've had to look at all kinds of data, to find out about markets. For instance, if I wanted to find out about how many people, let's say I was chasing, Generation Z with a company, I'd want to find out how many people there are in Generation Z, and of that number of people, how many of them would be potential prospects to buy my product. Now, if you have a broad product like a, you know, shaver or something, then you've got a broad market, or maybe dish soap, that's broad market. But if you're selling something narrow like art, well, then you got to figure out, can you find statistics on that? Government provides some statistics, but it's kind of harder to get that. I think the reality is, unless you're selling something where you're going to sell millions of people or tens of hundreds of thousands of people, that kind of research is going to be handy. But if you're selling your own artwork, I mean, what's the maximum number of paintings you're going to sell in a year? 50, 60, 100, 200? And so that, what that really means is you've got to find 200 buyers, 200 extra buyers. And chances are some of those buyers are going to buy more than once. So you might not even have to find 200. And so the goal here is to figure out what market you're going after. So let's say, I know Leslie, for instance, lives in the LA basin. So if you want to sell work in the LA basin, then you've got a pretty big market. You got millions of people. And then there are lots of really wealthy people who have the ability to buy really good art. And so the questions then become, where do they buy it? How do they buy it? How do you reach those people? You're not likely to be sending direct mail cards to their homes unless you know who they are. Now, if you know who they are, if you're gathering a list because you've been at art shows and things like that, then you can start doing that kind of thing too. But really, it doesn't need to be that level of sophistication to sell artwork typically. Now, again, if you're selling something, to millions of people, it's another story, right? Steve 𝗵𝘃𝗶𝗴 says, I have 4 questions. Okay, we'll give you all 4. In a saturated art market, what unique value propositions can plein air artists highlight to stand out to potential buyers and galleries? Well, Steve, you're making an assumption that the art market is saturated, and it may not be saturated. You may be thinking it's saturated. You may be thinking there's just only so many artists and so many buyers. That just may not be true. You need to find evidence if that's true. And if it's true, then that's a different story. The question about what can a plein air artist do to stand out to potential buyers or galleries? Look, it's all about, it's about stories. It's about your story. It's about the stories of paintings, and it's about the quality of your art. And if your quality stands out, if you have something that's unique, that's different from what everybody else is doing, then that's a good starting point, right? Because if you're doing the same thing everybody's doing, maybe that's not going to benefit you that much. But then you've got to have something that's going to stand out to buyers. And, buyers are emotional beings. They see something and they go, oh, that reminds me of my childhood. And they're not even thinking it consciously necessarily. I have a painting that hangs in my sister-in-law's house. And she says, everybody who walks by it says they know where it was. And it reminds them of when they were little kids, because it's a tree swing with a tire or something. And so you want to have an emotional connection. And what you've got to do is figure out how to get distribution. You've got to get that beautiful emotional painting in front of people. So where do the buyers go? How are you going to get in front of them? That's why people make art shows. That's why people do gallery shows. That's why people do shows in restaurants and things like that. You've got to figure out where are the buyers. And then, if you got to get into a gallery, read my book, because I talk a lot about getting into galleries, which is a whole convoluted process, but an important one. And galleries may or may not be important for you. So the next question Steve has is, what role does storytelling play in marketing and selling art today? And how can artists develop compelling narratives around their work to engage in potential buyers? So that's a really good one. Storytelling is important if you can get the story told. So what do I mean by that? If you have a story, first off, every painting should be a story. Every painting should have something that the viewer goes, oh, I wonder what that story is. So if the story is, there's a wagon going down a street and a bunch of people jumping off the wagon, before it crashes, then there's a story there. And so you got to kind of figure out what the story is. It might be a beautiful landscape or a garden or something like that. But um, if you want your stories told, the first place is to create your stories. I have a whole chapter on my book, and I have a whole video about creating stories that I did because that's how important it is. The idea is a little bit of fantasy and a little bit of reality. All right. So I talk in my video about this one painting. It's a beautiful painting of a old man and a child fishing on a riverside. And so I made up a story for that painting. And the story I made up is I was walking out of the woods with my plein air gear, and I was getting ready to go home. And there out on the shore in this beautiful lighting was this grandfather and his son and his grandson. And he kept doing this with his grandfather and doing that, and they were laughing and having a lot of fun. And I was thinking about my memories when I was a kid fishing with my grandfather and how important that was to me. So there's a little bit of reality. If you want to add a little fantasy, it could be. It reminds me of a movie, or reminds me of this, or reminds me of that. So you look for something that gets people dreaming or thinking of something, and then that story then will resonate. Now, I was telling an art collector the other day, 50% of the people, there are 4 personality types. 50% of the personality types can walk into a gallery, see a painting, and go, "That's for me." The other 50% can walk in and not even notice it. And they need to have it pointed out to them, and they need to have the story told to them. And when they connect with the story, which is why you want stories, because you can't live on just the 50%. So you get the stories. So what I like to do, I don't do it so much anymore because I haven't had time, but what I used to do is I would write up a story, and a small story, a short story, 1 paragraph, and I'd stick it on the back of the painting. And then I would give it to the gallery, and I'd say to the gallery, "Please, on the name tag, that says the name of the painting and the price, put the story right there. And also tell your salespeople about the story, so that when somebody says, 'Hey, tell me about this painting,' you say, 'Oh, well, Eric was walking through the woods one day with his plein air gear, and he ran across this grandfather and his grandson fishing, and it reminded him of,'" right? And so they tell the story, and all of a sudden the person goes, "I love that painting. That reminds me of when I was with my grandfather," right? And then the emotional connection clicks. But you've got to get somebody to tell the story. That means you got to make sure your gallery knows the story, they're willing to tell the story, the salespeople know the story, and that the story is posted. Because if it's not out there for people, and you can, of course, put your stories on your website as well, assuming that people do that. You can even these days create Instagram videos and stuff about your story. Next question from Steve is, how can artists leverage collaborations such as joint workshops, exhibits to expand their reach and tap into new markets? I've been team teaching now for 2 workshops with number 3 the next month, and it's been wonderful, and I see a value. Well, I think you answered your own question. Collaboration is powerful. If I have an audience of 100 people, and another person has an audience of 100 people, and you work together on something, now you've got 200 people to talk to. You got 3 artists, now you got 300 people to talk to. So anything you can collaborate on, joint workshops, joint shows. And if you do joint shows, here's what you do. This is the move. It works very well. Is, let's say there are 3 artists in a show, and rather than you standing in front of your work and talking about your work and trying to sell your work, have artist B stand in front of your work, you stand in front of their work, or maybe you have 4 artists so you can equally rotate. And the idea is get them selling your work for you and them talking about it. It's easier for other people to talk about your work than for you to talk about it, especially if you're shy. Okay, one last question from Steve is, what are the current trends in art buying behavior? And how should artists adapt their marketing strategies to align with the preferences of modern collectors? Well, listen, Steve, there's a real sensitive topic among artists, and that topic is, should I be playing to the market or should I be painting what I want? Right? And you can thrive and survive either way. I have a friend who's a really wonderful artist, and he paints gardens. And he had a gallery. I don't remember where. Let's say it was in the Hamptons. So he went out into the Hamptons and took pictures of gardens, and then he painted gardens in the Hamptons, and they all sold. Why? Because people were there in the Hamptons visiting. They wanted a memory, and they loved the old houses and the gardens in the Hamptons, and so he was able to do that. You know, if you're walking into a gallery and you're a tourist in Hawaii, chances are you want to take home a painting of Hawaii. I had Mark Feldman here the other day. He's a California artist. He said, I love painting these Adirondack scenes, but they're not going to sell in California. He's right. You know, typically, unless you have, you know, scenes that are kind of generic. So you kind of want to paint to the market. So I have a gallery in 𝗵𝘃𝗶𝗴 Fine Art in Gloucester, Mass. So what should I be painting for there? Really, I should be painting, you know, old fishing boats and sailing schooners and things like that. That's more of a fit. That's not compromising too much. You know, if the gallery says, hey, those little red barns sold a lot, paint me 30 more of those, then you have to decide if you want to compromise there. So the trends in art buying behavior, I don't know. You'd have to ask art galleries that. I would say the trends are that a lot of people are not spending a lot of money right now. And as a result, you know, you got to try harder. You got to market harder. There are people spending money. You got to just reach out and make sure you're hitting the people who are spending money. Okay, so I want to tell you, we have the doorbell. That means we have a guest. All right, who is our guest? Let's bring him on.
Hi, Eric.
It's Suzanne. Suzanne in Colorado, I can tell.
Yes.
Wow.
It's a beautiful day in Colorado.
Yeah. What is your question, Suzanne?
Well, I was following up because I was like your first Marketing Monday guest, you know, question. And I simply had asked about trying to find that server, that website that to start you off. And I told Almandine that I would come on and simply tell you my status now, because it's been a while since you started that.
Yeah,
so if
okay,
that's
I'd like
okay
to
with
hear it.
you.
Of course, absolutely.
Well, the first thing is I needed a new website, and I've looked at what most of the master artists are showing their art, a lot of server they're using, and I've decided on one, and right now am just putting together those quality images for the artwork.
Okay.
Then I really needed to figure out a branding. What am I going to promote that I do that I like, that I want to do most in the artwork? And I like acrylics and pastels, so I think I'm going to go that way. So that's another thing. And the other thing was I moved from Texas, which I had spent a lot of time in the arts over there, and now I'm in Florida and Colorado. And so I'm in the midst of establishing my connections in these places, so I can sell a little bit. But my main goal is to travel. So I'm working on that, figuring out, well, where do I want to go? What places do I want to go? In what form do I want that to be? Do I want to host artist trips like some of the artists that we know, or do I want to simply go to the plein air events? So that's something else.
Let me stop you there, Suzanne,
Okay.
before you go on. You said something about branding yourself as an oil and acrylic artist. That is not a brand. That's what you do. And I mean, what you do is kind of plays into your brand. But remember, Thomas Kinkade was the painter of light. What you might want to do is look for a hook, right? And it doesn't need to be a slogan, but it can be a slogan. So you just landed on something, and that is that you're a plein air traveler. And and so if you the romance and the story that you could be telling on your website, your new website, would be Suzanne travels the world to find the best scenery because she knows that people love love to see the world, or whatever. And so talk about, pictures of your world travelers. Here's Suzanne painting in Texas, Suzanne painting in Paris, Suzanne painting here and there. And then make your paintings all about the places that you visited. And I think that would be really good. One of my galleries called me and they said, we can sell European paintings all day long. If you sell paintings, you give us paintings of Europe, people love them. And so I did, and they sold. And so, you might be able to use something like that. Doesn't mean you can't paint locally, but the idea of using a brand and making that brand be a little bit more about something that's memorable, so that when people are talking about you, they go, "Oh, Suzanne she's the world traveler," So, because there's some people who kind of get boxed in. Acrylic and oil is not enough. You want to, like, I know there's a couple of painters who, like David 𝗵𝘃𝗶𝗴, he's famous for his barns, right? So, David 𝗵𝘃𝗶𝗴, whether you like it or not, he's branded himself as a barn painter. So you might keep it broad. Broad is the world. You could do something like that. Just a thought.
Okay. Well, I guess I just saying a medium doesn't say nearly enough about what your branding is, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I continue to work. I still continue to work diligently on the craft, and I'm trying to set up mentorships with some master artists. So that's something where we're both going to have to be happy. And I'm working on that. And
that's easy.
Hires in February. And so he has already agreed to be my assistant to some extent here, sort of like a Buddy Odom is to Kathy Odom, which surprised the heck out of me. But he has enjoyed his trips with me to Streamline events, so that's a good thing. And I'm also setting up my serious studio here in Colorado. I have one in Florida, but not here in Colorado.
Nice. Well, congratulations. So one thing I want to talk about, Susan, is that having a website is kind of like having your name in the phone book. You remember phone books? A lot of people watching don't know what a phone book is, right? So having a website, no one gets called in the phone book, in the white pages. White pages were people's names, yellow pages were people's businesses, right? So in the white pages, if you look up Rhodes, you go down Rhodes until you find Eric Rhodes, and then you get my phone number and you call me. It seems absurd today, actually, but because there's no way to find people's phone numbers now. And so having a website is kind of like having a phone number. What you really want to do is figure out how to get people to visit the website, because you can spend a lot of time and money on having a website, and unless you have a system that's going to get people in there, and that's where your marketing comes in. That's where your ads are pointing people to your website. You're offering a free incentive. Come to my website and get my free calendar, my free ebook, my free whatever, so that you can find interested parties, get them there, and then they're looking at the work. You're gathering their email address. Then you can be talking to them on a week to week or month to month basis newsletter. Here's my travel schedule. Here's where I'm going in the world. And then, Christmas time, you can talk about commission work, or you can talk about studio sales, things like that. So the goal of the website is to be a place people can come and see your work. And you want to have all of your Facebook and Instagram, et cetera, kind of leading them to your website in your bio. And then ultimately, you've got to figure out how to get people there. So what are you going to do to get people there?
All those things.
Okay.
I have to make all those marketing connections. Yes.
Well, your husband is now going to be your Sherpa and your marketer.
Yeah.
So.
And my marketing, you already said that, and I was just like, wow, it's hard to do it all, but I'm going to be there.
Well, that'll be nice. And I'll tell you, that's the best case scenario, because most artists don't want to market, and most artists need a Buddy Odom. And so if I were serious about going out and making my living as an artist, which I'm not, I do make some money with it, but if I had to do it full time, I would hire somebody to be my manager. And I would let them handle all the stuff that I don't want to do so I can focus on painting. And I would let them do my marketing, and get me into galleries and have conversations with collectors and do the selling and do whatever it needs so that I can focus on painting. And that, if you have a partner, a husband, a wife, a spouse, or a cousin, a friend, a kid, whatever, who is willing to do this for you, and they're committed to it, and they're not going to just phone it in, but they're actually going to do it. That's a best case scenario. And then if you can't find that, well, you can find professionals, of course, who are willing to do it in exchange for either a fee or in exchange for a percentage. And I talked to a lady the other day who basically does this for artists. She takes a percentage, and she's kind of like their agent. And so she gets them into galleries, gets them into shows, does all that hard work and heavy lifting. So others can paint. Well, Suzanne, thank you so much for tuning in.
It's nice to see you again, Eric.
Nice to see you. Thank you again. Good luck with that. And I'm anxious to see your website once it's done. Okay, we've got a couple more questions here. Kevin McPherson actually says, how do you deal with copyright infringement? Kevin. Well, I would imagine Kevin gets a lot of it. So I'm going to tell a story. I'm with my friend, no names, and he's a very strong local artist in the area I was living at the time. And we're walking down the street. I think I've told this story before. We're walking down the street in this shopping area, and there's a gallery. And I said, have you ever been in that gallery? He says, no. I said, well, they carry your paintings. He says, no, they don't. I said, there's one in the window. He says, what? And we go look in the window, and there's one of his paintings in the window. And it's a cheap Chinese copy, but a pretty good one. And so we went inside and we looked at the wall, and there's a whole wall of his paintings. And so we said to the gallery owner, what's the story on this artist? And he says, oh, he started telling the story of the artist. And then my friend said, well, I'm the artist. He said, you are? I'm so happy to meet you. And he said, but you're carrying my paintings. He says, well, yeah, I bought them in this catalog. And he pulled out this catalog, and it had, it was that thick. It had hundreds of artists, and they had all been, they had taken images offline and just copied them. And they have these machines, these people who just sit there and copy paintings all day long. And then they sell them. He said, he didn't realize he was violating any copyrights or anything. They have sculpture and everything. And so, it was kind of an uncomfortable moment, but this is happening. The problem with copyright infringement in places like China is it's pretty hard to police it. If you have a good copyright attorney, we have a mad dog copyright attorney. If somebody steps on our copyrights, we sick them. We say, sick them. And the reason you have to do that is because you have to defend your copyrights. If somebody does that, we have people who try to infringe on certain things. We have trademarks. We spent a lot of money establishing them. Somebody takes a trademark, we say, sick them, and we go after them. And, in copyright infringement, it's $25,000 fine per infringement. So if somebody does 2 infringements on you, that's $50,000. And the courts are very, very aggressive towards shutting down copyrights. People don't know that. And so you want to get somebody that you can say, sick them. That's what I would say. All right, Kevin. Karen Pochop says, should I open my own place and teach and sell my own art? I don't know, Karen. Should you? So, see, I can't answer a question like that. It's not a bad question. It's just that I don't know anything about you. I don't know if your work's any good. I don't know if you teach well. You've got to think about what you're getting yourself into. Should I open up a restaurant? Well, I'm going to use restaurant as a great example because restaurants are the hardest place in the world. We romanticize someday I love to cook. Someday I'm going to have my own restaurant and I'm going to be cooking for hundreds of people and it's going to be fun. And then when you do it, it's like, I can't wait to get away from this. Or, maybe you're the host but you now are becoming a manager of something. If you open a place, you've got to pay rent. If you don't have enough money to pay the rent, it's got to come out of somewhere, your pocket, or you got to sell enough stuff. What if you don't sell your art? I see a lot of galleries that are artist owned, and I see a lot of galleries that don't appear to be artist owned that are artist owned. So like if I'm walking down the street, I remember being in Carmel, and there was an artist owned gallery, and I thought, I'm not going to go in there because what I see in the window is not of interest to me, and it's all going to be for that artist. Now, I went into other galleries and I saw a lot of different things in the window, and it turned out they were artist owned, but they didn't have the artist name on them. And what that does, sometimes the artist name on it says, okay, this is only about you. But if I don't like what you do, I'm not going to get you into my gallery. So if it's, if it's the XYZ gallery instead of the Eric Rhoads gallery, then, maybe it's going to pull people in that otherwise might not come in. Now, if you have a big giant brand and everybody knows who you are, then maybe you want to be that, but there are still people. And should you teach? If you got to do the numbers, how many people do I need every week to teach? And can you do that? Can you get, if the idea is to generate income, can you do that at a local community center? I took my first art lesson at a community center, and I paid $25 per lesson. And he probably didn't pay much for the community center, if anything. But if you've got rent and you're paying $2,500 or $25,000 a month in rent, because you want to be in a place where there's a lot of traffic, you might try going and teaching for somebody else first and see how that goes and see if you're getting enough customers. And then if you want to open your own place, I say go for it. Do it. Okay, let's see how we're doing here. Let's show everybody how they can come live. Okay, one more time. If you want to come on live, just go to artschool.live/stream. Okay. All right, here is 𝗵𝘃𝗶𝗴𝗏 𝗔𝗿𝗁𝗃. Bobby says, how much value do you place in having a website to share your artwork? Is it a necessity? I'm considering a website, but having a hard time justifying the cost in my head. The cost is not just in your head. It's a real cost. Look, Bobby, you want to flip a switch. The switch that you want to flip, it's either on or it's off. If it's on, that switch says, I'm a professional artist who makes a living selling my artwork. And when that switch is on, I have to do all the necessary things that a professional artist selling artwork has to do. When the switch is off, you don't have to do any of that, right? But if you have a switch on, you got to have a website. If you have a switch on, you got to do advertising. You have a switch on, you probably should find a gallery. If you have your switch off, then I would say don't do a website because there's no reason to do it. And you can still sell some work through Instagram and Facebook and X and other things. It's hard. You got to know how to do it, but you can do it. And so ask yourself, is it time to turn the switch on? Because you will have to think differently once you become a professional artist. And being a professional artist means you're a small business person, and you're going to make your living doing this, and you're going to be committed to the things that everybody who has a small business has to do, which includes taxes and accounting and all that ugly stuff. All right, next is, okay, let's show one more time in case we got anybody else who wants to come on live before we go. Go to artschool.live/stream. Next, we have a question from Melinda Fritz. How could Patreon be used as a marketing tool? Well, there are a lot of people who use Patreon as a means of housing their teaching. So Patreon is a membership site. People can become a member of your Patreon site, and you can have multiple levels. You can have, $5 a month, $10 a month, $100 a month. I have a friend that has a Patreon site. He has up to $10,000 a month, and people buy it. But he has special things. You kind of put together a list of all the special things that everybody, that you do for everybody on the different things. And then you got to sit there and deliver, right? Whatever those things are. So if it's typically, I don't think it's about marketing paintings. It's more about marketing how to sell your training. And there are so many other ways that you can also do it. So that's not just the only way. But if it's about marketing your art, I don't know. Maybe you could try setting up a Patreon page and get people to support buying your art there. But I don't know. That's a good question. Okay, well, I hope this is kind of scratched that itch for you. This is today's Art Marketing Monday. We do have a free gift for you. It's a free video. We produce art instruction videos at painttube.tv. And the free video is 97 incredible art secrets from the world's finest artists. It's a 2-hour video. It's free. It's a sampler of great tips from some of the videos we've produced over the years. Just go to 97artsecrets.com/free. Reminder that we have Pastel Live coming up in September. It's just around the corner. And I mean, it is September, right? So the world's leading pastel artist teaching for 3 days, plus there's a 4th Essentials Day to kick off the week. And you even get replays in case you can't make it live. But live is even better. Just go to pastellive.com. We also have Realism Live coming up for people who love realists, who are realists or want to be realists. Some of the top realist painters. That's coming in November. And then we have in January, we have Watercolor Live. And in March, we have Acrylic Live. Couldn't remember that. Okay, so make sure you subscribe to this. We're here every weekday at 12 noon. If you go to YouTube, hit this, go find Art School Live and hit the subscribe button. That's a pretty cool thing for you and for us. And it'll notify you when we're live. And of course, give me a follow on all the places. It's at Eric Rhodes, all right, social media. And thanks for tuning in today and happy Monday. I'm Eric Rhodes. Bye-bye.